As if the fallout from the November 5th election couldn't get any sweeter, we're now getting word that George Soros' empire is collapsing. Voters overwhelmingly rejected Soros' radical district attorney candidates throughout the nation, but we're going to find out that in many ways, that's the least of Soros' worries. His entire empire appears to be collapsing, and with it, the new world order he so desperately tried to build. Hey gang, it's me, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor. Very, very excited Patriot Professor, here to celebrate with you the rise of a new golden age that you made possible. And wait until you see what else you made possible. You're going to absolutely love it. But make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. You do not want to miss a single video where we analyze the rise of a new conservative age, both here and abroad. Before we dive into things here, I'll be the first to admit that bad habits can be a struggle for anyone, myself included. And when I hear about a good solution to solving a bad habit that I know many deal with, I can't wait to share it with you. What if I told you that there was an enjoyable and fun alternative to one of the most prevalent bad habits in our society? That's where Fume comes in. This new flavored air device is quickly becoming the new alternative to those old choices. It's an award-winning flavored air device with phenomenal flavor, and it's a guilt-free option with non-toxic seasonal flavors like maple pepper and white cranberry. It's like having your favorite herbal tea and knowing you could feel good about it. The best part about Fume is that it fills a void when you're trying to kick those nasty habits, and it's one more way that courageous conservatives can fight against the left and their agenda to keeping Americans down. You should seriously give Fume a try. They conduct third-party studies, have amazing quality control of their products, and they're developed all of it with real doctors right here in the USA. Join over 300,000 Fume users, and for a limited time, use my code Steve Turley to get your free Fume base when you order the Journey Pack. Head to tryfume.com, use code Steve Turley, or scan the QR code on the screen. Get a free Fume base with any Journey Pack order. Trust me, gang, this is one swap you can feel great about. What's there to lose? Click on that link below or scan that QR code right now. We are now just over a week from that historic day, November 5th, and it's widely agreed upon that the election was indeed a turning point. It wasn't merely a rejection of Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Democrat policies that have made us poorer and less safe. Ironically, it also marked an election where the majority of Democrats rejected their more radical wing's policies. As it turns out, the big loser coming out of Tuesday wasn't just Kamala Harris, it was George Soros. Take a look at some of these stats. Radically progressive district attorneys backed by Soros lost 13 of last week's top 25 races across the nation, even in some of the deepest blue strongholds. So, for example, the biggest prize of the night belonged to Republican-turned-independent Nathan Hochman in the city of Los Angeles. He crushed their ultra-liberal Soros-backed DA George Gascon by a humiliating 23 points. Yes, you heard that right. Voters in L.A. voted for a law and order Republican for their DA, though he had to run as an independent because, well, they're so allergic to voting for Republicans. But no matter. Their ultra-woke leftist DA is no more, and he lost by a thumping 23 points. San Francisco's tough-on-crime DA crushed her Soros-backed opponent 2-1. Now, this election was fascinating in San Francisco because you might remember back in June of 2022, San Francisco voters went to the polls and overwhelmingly voted in favor of recalling their ultra-woke prosecutor Chesa Boudin, who was also bankrolled by Soros. Boudin implemented what he called restorative justice measures, which sought to end mass incarceration by finding alternatives to locking criminals up. Well, Voters, even in woke San Francisco, didn't take too kindly to that effort, and they ended up recalling him by a massive margin. They put instead in place a staunch law and order DA by the name of Brooke Jenkins. She was challenged on Tuesday by a Soros-backed radical, and Jenkins crushed her on Tuesday in a landslide. So even in San Francisco, they've had enough. And even in California, you may have heard this, California's Proposition 36, which restored tough penalties for drugs and theft, and which Kamala, in her typical fashion, refused to answer how she voted on. That passed, gang, with 70% support. And that support obviously cut across the grain of partisan allegiances. More than half of Kamala Harris's voters backed tougher crime measures, rejecting policies championed by Soros-funded prosecutors. And we could go on and on. In the last 2 years, of the roughly 75 Soros-backed DAs, over 30 have left office and 20 have been replaced by far more conservative law and order prosecutors. The most recent one before the election was in the failing city of Portland, Antifa-stan, right? Voters there rose up to oust yet another Soros-backed ultra-leftist DA from office. Nathan Vasquez defeated Soros-backed Mike Schmidt for the DA position in Multnomah County, which contains Portland. Schmidt was an ultra-leftist who refused to prosecute violent Antifa thugs, and as it turns out, his defeat was a harbinger of what was to come in November. And it's all part and parcel of the unraveling of the Soros empire. They're suffering defeat after defeat after defeat. As many of you know, his son Alex was deeply involved in trying to get Harris and Walz elected. Pictures of one of their meetings went viral all over social media. Those endeavors, of course, collapse. And all of this is coming on the heels of a recent announcement that Soros's Open Society Foundations was indeed leaving Europe. Now, this is coming from back in August of last year, where Soros's Open Society Foundations announced that they were significantly reducing all operations in the European Union. In a letter sent out to their various funded organizations in Europe, OSF said, quote, "The new approved strategic direction provides for withdrawal and termination of large parts of our current work within the EU, shifting our focus and allocation of resources to other parts of the world. OSF and the Open Society Foundations will largely terminate funding within the European Union, and further funding will be extremely limited." Now, this move away from Europe was happening just weeks after it was revealed that Soros's foundations were experiencing mass layoffs following the recent leadership transition to his son, Alex. So the Open Society Foundations announced plans to cut almost half of their global workforce. In an emailed statement, the organization did indeed confirm that they had made the difficult decision to reduce their workforce by at least 40%. Now, of course, the Soros' organization was trying to spin that, claiming that the layoffs and the operational changes were intended to enhance its ability to counter the threats faced by open and free societies around the world. But many have noted that these massive cuts, their withdrawal from the EU, and now the increasing number of political defeats all over the United States, it all raises the question of the continued relevance and influence of Soros's infamous plans for a new world order. And so it really does look like that world, like Soros's empire, has come crashing down. And it does look like November 5th really was a turning point in more ways than one.